Hey, it's Nikki, and this is 5 steps to help you let that bad review go. Everyone gets a bad review. Now and then. It happens. Even the most amazing, most perfect guides. There are the frustrating 3-star reviews, oh, the guide was amazing and I loved all the stops, but I just really wasn't interested in the topic. There's the personal slight bad review. I found the guide boring. The nitpicky 4-star reviews. Oh, we had a great time, but the itinerary said 3 cocktails and we received 2 cocktails and 1 wine, right? That's a common one. And there's also, of course, the reviews that have absolutely nothing to do with our performance. There was a really annoying person on the guest, so it made it hard to enjoy the tour. I'm not saying a bad review won't always hurt, just a little bit. But in this article, I'll give you some tools to help you analytically look at your bad reviews, which will at least make it less personal, which helps. So, first things first, be proactive with your reviews, right? Don't be passive when it comes to your reviews. You have a lot more power than you think. Make sure you're doing everything you can, obviously, first of all, to get that 5-star review. And then you want to get ahead of any situation if there are any issues. So, for example, if anything major went wrong, like one of your vendors is closed and you had to adjust the tour midway through, in that case, you should definitely alert your manager, alert the OTA, the marketplace immediately. Let them know what happened, what you did to remedy, how you communicated this to your guests, and then ideally save a screenshot of that message that you send so it is time-stamped in case you need to prove that you were aware of the situation in the moment. You'll rarely need to use it, but it's good to have that just in case. Even if something minor occurred, so some of your guests arrived late, or you weren't feeling well, and you could just tell guests noticed, or you could just tell guests weren't super into it. It happens. Just make a note. Again, what happened, how you handled it, etc. Just for you. You could keep like a little track in your phone. This way, if that bad review pops up, it at least won't be a total surprise. So, here are, with that in mind, right, you do that first. Now, 5 steps to prevent a bad review from being so personal. Number 1, did they specifically say, I hated the guide, right? I know it's hard to separate ourselves from our tours, but if you really read closely, very often the complaint has nothing to do with you or your guide skills. It is very common to find in a bad review, the guide was great, but, right? So, first thing, look for that sentence. If you can find that sentence, take a deep breath, know you did a good job, and then continue to step 2. If they do specifically say something negative about the guide, right? If you can't find that sentence, take a deep breath and think, does that really surprise you? Right? Go back to those notes that I mentioned. See if you wrote down a note from that tour. It might have been from months ago, but look up, find the date. Did you write anything down? Did you know at the time it was a weird day or that the guests weren't loving it? If you can find a note or a reason, you might be able to feel a little bit better because you weren't totally blindsided by it, realistically speaking. Okay. Now, continue to step 2 and really drill down onto why they weren't happy and what you could do to prevent that from happening in the future. Step 2, was it something within your control? This is the first thing I check on a bad review before my blood pressure rises and I start to really panic. Sometimes people just didn't like the tour, and it can have to do with a million things other than you. For example, a family member booked a tour that they weren't really interested in. They didn't properly read and misunderstood what they were signing up for. That happens very often. They are hungover from the night before. Turns out they don't like authentic food like they thought they did when they signed up for this tour. Or even maybe they were hoping there were more people or less people in this group tour. Other things that are mostly out of your control. Terrible weather, right? For example, they booked a walking tour in New York City in February. There you go. That's going to not be a great experience. Or maybe a vendor randomly closed down. You go to this vendor every day for this tour, and out of nowhere it closed, and it happens to be the one place they were really looking forward to. And yes, you can mitigate this as best as you can. I have a blog post on that. But if they're still disappointed, can you really blame them, right? That's understandable. I know our industry is very big on the customer is always right. But I've often found that in cases where the customer is right, you're also not wrong, if that makes sense. In this case, I like to acknowledge the customer's complaint, right? In any of these cases, it rained. That sucked. The vendor was closed. Yep, that's actually a problem. We didn't deliver as promised, right? If it is something that means the tour wasn't able to continue as it was marketed, then acknowledge the complaint, offer the refund or partial refund, and rest assured knowing it was out of your control. If you feel like you could have, should have done more, proceed to step 3. Step 3, could you have done something differently? If you've moved on to this step, good for you on taking responsibility for the bad review, even if it hurts a little bit. Now let's look practically without being too hard on yourself. Could you have done something differently? Spend a few minutes brainstorming and make a list of any alternative solutions you could have done in the moment. Try to really think outside the box, even unrealistically. Let's say, for example, you had an extra $100 that you could have used to solve the problem. The exercise is simply to get you thinking. We'll never know, of course, if any of these on this list would have actually prevented the bad review, but it's just an exercise to show you that you're not completely powerless in preventing bad reviews. Most of them maybe, but not all, and that should be hopeful. Looking at that list, why didn't you use one of the solutions you've potentially came up with? Was it simply because you didn't think of it at the time? In which case, good news, you now have that written down, right? You now know that solution. Or maybe it's because you didn't have the resources, time, help, etc., to achieve one of the solutions. Is there something you can change to make that solution more possible next time? Things to think about. Move on to the next step. Step 4. What can you change right now for all future tours? Hopefully there's one thing on your list that you've just made that you can implement moving forward. That's ideal, right? Maybe it's as simple as having a backup stop for each vendor, or committing to checking the news each morning before your tour, just in case there's an unexpected parade or protest. This gives you back the control. You have the power to make that change and hopefully avoid the exact same bad review in the future. Good, right? Now let it go. Just let that bad review go and move on to the final and most important step. Step 5. Read your good reviews. It's okay to mess up. It's okay that one person or group doesn't realize how amazing you actually are. One thing that eases the sting of any bad review is to go back to your good reviews. I know some guides who save their favorite reviews, the heart-filled emails, the novel-length 5-star reviews, and I think that's an amazing habit. You can keep them saved in a folder in your email or save screenshots to your phone for moments just like this. Read them, go through them. Remember how many people thought you were amazing, how many lives you've touched through your work. You're a great guide, and a bad review will not change that.